The Confederate Heartland Offensive could also be called the Kentucky Campaign and Bragg's invasion of Kentucky. Generals Braxton Bragg and Edmund Kirby Smith had the mission of trying to convince Kentucky, who was neutral in the Civil War at that time, to join the Confederacy. Their goal was to outflank and defeat in battle the Union troops under the command of Major General Don Carlos Buell. Generals Bragg and Smith would rack up several successful battles, including Perryville, Kentucky. But overall, the two generals would have to retreat the state because Kentucky became under the Union control for the remainder of the Civil War. This campaign would end up involving Corinth, Mississippi, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Confederate Heartland Offensive would involve the First Battle of Chattanooga, and this would set up two more battles that would take place in Chattanooga the following year. Come along with us as we walk through the battles of August 14th through October 10th, 1862. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The 1862 military situation. There were a lot of Union victories that had taken place in the states of Kentucky and Tennessee that had mostly driven out the Confederate forces from those areas. To name a few of the relevant victories, the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers were now open to U.S. Navy after the defeats of Fort Henry and Fort Donelson by the ironclads. The railroad hub in Corinth, Mississippi, had now been evacuated, leaving most of West Tennessee now under Union control. A new top priority for the Confederacy was a stronghold on the Mississippi River, as well as Vicksburg, Mississippi. The Union generals now had their sights set on both of those strategic areas. Major General Don Carlos Buell had a large Union force that was threatening to take Chattanooga, Tennessee. General Bragg needed to divert the attention of the Union forces, so he decided to invade the state of Kentucky. Kentucky was a great target because in the western part of the state, cotton, tobacco, and hemp were produced. Also, in the city of Louisville, the slave trade center was very important to the South. The eastern part of Kentucky did not produce very much until the Industrial Revolution, when it became one of the major producers of coal, which was shipped to the steel manufacturers in the North many years later, and was not very active in the slave trade. There was not a great need for slaves in most of eastern Kentucky before and during the Civil War. However, there were several families that did have them. But financially, the trade was not as successful in the mountainous counties, as the families there were living in poor conditions. The campaign plan. On April 6, 1862, General P.G.T. Beauregard had to depart the army in Tupelo, Mississippi, after the siege of Corinth, leaving Bragg in command of the army. The official reason for Beauregard's depart was sick leave. However, he had failed to get permission to take the leave of absence from Davis. Therefore, for 2 weeks he was absent without leave. On April 12, 1862, Jefferson Davis appointed General Bragg a full general, and Bragg was only the 6th out of 7 men to ever achieve that rank in the Confederacy. On June 17, 1862, Bragg was then appointed the commander of the Western Department, known formally as Department No. 2, including the Army of the Mississippi. During the month of August 1862, Confederate General Braxton Bragg planned to invade Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. First, Bragg was hoping to arouse enough support from the secessionists in Kentucky to seize control of the state. That way, Confederate conscription laws could be passed and enforced for the raising of needed troops. The plan was to draw the Union armies away from the states of Mississippi and Georgia. Bragg began his plan by transporting all of his infantry by railroads from Tupelo, Mississippi to Chattanooga, Tennessee. This would be the largest movement of Confederate troops by train during the Civil War. He moved his cavalry and artillery by road. Once he was in Chattanooga, Bragg was able to challenge Buell, who was advancing his troops toward the city. Bragg wanted to drive Buell back across the Ohio River. General Edmund Kirby Smith. February 25, 1862, the Confederate War Department issued Special Orders No. 45. These orders would place Major General Kirby Smith in command of the District of East Tennessee. These troops were undisciplined and were widely dispersed. Over the next few months, Smith would work unifying all the units and making sure that the troops had enough provisions, while doing all of this in an area filled with Unionists. Even though the official start of the Confederate Heartland Offensive did not begin until August 14, 1862, there were battles that were fought that caused the offensive to take shape. On June 7th through the 8th, 1862, the first battle for Chattanooga took place. The first battle for Murfreesboro took place on June 13, 1862. We will discuss these battles in future videos. On July 31, 1862, Smith and his troops traveled to Chattanooga and met with Bragg. Together, they planned a two-pronged invasion of Kentucky to end the string of Union successes in the West. Bragg gave Smith two brigades commanded by Brigadier General Patrick R. Cleburne and Colonel Preston Smith for a limited time. Built up by Bragg's soldiers, Smith's forces comprised 4 divisions and 1 cavalry brigade. They are as follows: 1st Division, Brigadier General Carter Stevenson. 2nd Division, Brigadier General Henry Heth. 3rd Division, Brigadier General Thomas Churchill. 4th Division, Brigadier General Patrick R. Cleburne. Cavalry Brigade, Colonel John S. Scott. Using the help of Lieutenant General Edmund Kirby Smith, who was commanding a separate force out of Knoxville, Tennessee, Bragg began moving his forces northward. While in the state of Tennessee, General Bragg would have several successes. We will be covering several battles in Tennessee, which includes the First Battle of Chattanooga, First Battle of Murfreesboro, and Munfordville. In Kentucky, we will be covering the battles of Richmond, Bardstown, and Perryville, Kentucky. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.